Revenge is never born suddenly. It starts quietly, like a whisper in the mind, and if left unchallenged, it grows into a voice that speaks louder than reason, compassion, or faith. In the case of this woman, Padre Pio described how her journey into darkness began with a deep wound, an injustice that shook her life. At first, she reacted as anyone would, with pain, confusion, and disbelief. But instead of healing, her pain fermented into something more dangerous. With each passing week, the wound turned into anger, and the anger turned into resentment. She replayed what happened to her over and over again until the memory became sharper than the event itself. Those who tried to comfort her found themselves pushed away. She didn't want healing, she wanted payback. And slowly, revenge became the only lens through which she viewed the world. Padre Pio explained that when a person feeds anger daily, it begins to reshape the heart. It carves bitterness into the soul like marks on stone. The woman stopped praying. She stopped forgiving. She stopped seeing goodness around her. Instead, she carried her hatred with her everywhere, wearing it like armor, believing it made her strong. But revenge does not strengthen, it weakens, draining a person from the inside while convincing them they are in control. Her relationships deteriorated, her health declined, and instead of seeking peace, she sought vengeance with such intensity that it became her life's purpose. Padre Pio said that by the time she reached the end of her earthly life, revenge was no longer just an emotion, it was her identity. This segment reveals how bitterness grows slowly but dangerously, transforming a wounded heart into a vengeful soul long before death ever arrives. Padre Pio often spoke of how souls reveal their true condition after death, stripped of excuses, stripped of masks, stripped of the justifications they once used to defend their actions. When he saw the soul of the woman who chose revenge, her appearance reflected the exact state of her heart at the moment she died. In his vision, Padre Pio described her soul as heavy, weighed down by dark chains that symbolized the grudges she clung to. These were not placed on her by God or by angels. They were forged by her own thoughts, her own choices, her own refusal to forgive. Each link in the chain represented a moment when she chose resentment over mercy, retaliation over compassion, hatred over healing. The soul did not stand upright. It was hunched, almost folded in on itself, as though crushed by its own bitterness. Padre Pio said that even in death, her face carried the hardened expression of someone who had spent years reliving pain instead of releasing it. Her eyes were restless, unable to focus, as if trapped in an endless replay of the wrong done to her. Around her was a dim, suffocating mist, a reflection of the spiritual blindness she embraced during life. Padre Pio explained that when a person allows revenge to dominate their thoughts, their soul loses its ability to see the light of God, even when the light is near. And so, in his vision, the woman stood close to divine illumination but could not feel it, as though the fog of anger insulated her from grace. Her torment was not inflicted from outside. It rose from within. The same rage she fed on earth now consumed her in the afterlife. And Padre Pio understood instantly that this soul suffered not because she was unloved by God, but because she had closed her heart to every chance of healing that love tried to offer. Padre Pio explained that the human soul is shaped by what it repeatedly chooses. Love expands it. Humility softens it. But revenge? Revenge hardens it into something unrecognizable. In the case of this woman, her soul had been slowly molded by years of bitter determination to settle the score. By the time she died, the desire for vengeance had become the central fire that fueled her identity. In Padre Pio's vision, this transformation became painfully clear. Her soul no longer radiated the warmth or softness that souls touched by grace often possess. Instead, it appeared jagged like a piece of iron hammered into a weapon. Where there should have been light in her core, there was instead a pulsing red glow, flickering like embers that refused to die. This glow didn't warm, it scorched. It was the lingering residue of her anger, a fire she had kept alive for years. Padre Pio noticed that every time the soul attempted to rise, to move toward the faint light that beckoned in the distance, the weight of her resentment pulled her back down. It was as if the thoughts she clung to in life had become gravestones tied to her spirit. The more she tried to ascend, the more she felt the burning drag of her own unresolved fury. The most tragic part, Padre Pio said, was that the soul still believed she was justified. Even after death, she replayed the injustice done to her, nursing the same old wounds. Souls consumed by revenge cannot see the harm they cause themselves. They focus only on the pain caused by others. But in that state, she was no longer harming her enemy, she was harming herself. The vengeance she once believed would liberate her had become the very prison that confined her. And Padre Pio realized that until she released the hatred she tightly gripped, she would continue to suffer under the weight of emotions she brought with her into eternity. Padre Pio often reminded people that death does not magically erase the emotional and spiritual habits we carried throughout our lives. In fact, it reveals them more clearly. For the woman who dedicated her final years to revenge, her soul crossed into eternity still holding the same burning desire for retaliation. And this, Padre Pio explained, is where the true danger lies. When a destructive emotion survives the body, it becomes far more powerful, far more binding. In his vision, Padre Pio saw that her soul was trapped in a cycle of self-inflicted torment. It was not a punishment imposed by an external judge. It was the natural consequence of a heart that never learned how to forgive or let go. Her anger, once limited by the distractions of earthly life, became the full environment of her eternity. There was no work to escape into, no entertainment to distract her, no sleep to numb the pain, only the raw, unfiltered intensity of the emotions she chose to nurture. Padre Pio warned that revenge creates a spiritual blindness. A soul obsessed with payback becomes incapable of seeing God's mercy even when it shines directly upon it. In the woman's case, the divine light reached her, but she could not recognize it. Her bitterness distorted everything. Even the gentle voices of angels calling her toward repentance sounded, to her, like accusations. The love offered to her felt like a threat. She recoiled from the very healing she desperately needed. This, Padre Pio said, is the tragedy of revenge. It convinces a soul that it is strong when in reality it is enslaved. It persuades a person that they are holding power over another when in fact they are weakening themselves. And after death, the illusion shatters, revealing a soul chained by the very emotions it refused to surrender. Padre Pio's warning was simple but profound. Revenge ends earthly lives, but its consequences can echo far beyond the grave. From Padre Pio's vision of the woman who chose revenge, one message stands out above everything else. The emotions we cultivate on earth follow us into eternity. Her story is not meant to frighten but to awaken us. It shows how a single decision, holding on to bitterness instead of seeking healing, can shape the destiny of a soul long after physical death. Padre Pio emphasized that God never abandons anyone, not even souls twisted by pain or anger. In the woman's vision, divine mercy still reached out to her. Light surrounded her, grace called her, and compassion waited patiently. But she could not respond because her heart had become hardened by years of nurturing resentment. Her suffering was not a punishment sent by God, it was the natural result of a spirit closed to forgiveness. The lesson Padre Pio wanted people to remember is simple yet challenging. What we refuse to let go of now, we may carry forever. Even small grudges, unresolved conflicts, or hidden resentments can grow into spiritual weights. They cloud our vision, poison our peace, and make it harder to recognize God's love when we need it most. Her story invites every listener to reflect. Are there wounds we are still holding on to? Are there people we have refused to forgive? Are we secretly feeding emotions that harm our own souls? Padre Pio's final message is one of hope. Healing is always possible. Forgiveness frees not just others, but us. The sooner we choose mercy, the lighter our soul becomes, both in this life and the next.